Okay. So I decided to do my persuasive speech on whether abortion should be legal or not, and I thought this was a good topic to talk about and very important because of just the recent new laws in the United States, in certain states that have changed, like the Roe versus Wade laws. So as of January 22nd, 1973, the Supreme Court passed the Roe versus Wade law, which was a ruled decision that every woman had the right to do what they want with their bodies and get an abortion or not get an abortion, whatever they decided to do. Women are the ones who are affected with having a child, so I don't believe that anyone else should have a say on what they want to do with their bodies. Before the Roe v. Wade Act, abortions were illegal through most of the United States since the 19th century. However, even though this law was going strong for many, many years, it was recently overturned in certain states of America as of June 24th, 2022, which stated that there was no longer a constitutional right to abortion. Before Roe v. Wade, the early rules regarding abortion were enacted during the 1820s to the 1830s, and during this era, women had to deal with purchasing dangerous drugs and consumed while pregnant, a bunch of different pills and things that they would have to get under the counter just because during this time abortions were illegal, so they had to find a way to get the baby out without getting in trouble by the president or the government. Some of these drugs were known to be fatal to the woman, and all of them knew this, but this just shows like how desperate and willing they were to get abortions, because if they did take these pills, they could have died or as well as kill the baby with them. And I think that abortions should be legal in every country, because now that there's been a recent overturn in the laws of certain countries and certain states, it's really upsetting and concerning for what is next for this country. Yes, I know that creating a child is a two-person job, but to be honest, there's only one person who gets affected by the pregnancy, and that's the woman. I think that it's really ignorant that most men who make up these rules and affect women isn't fair to make rules or judge someone when you have no idea what it feels like to be in this predicament. And it's really easy to shame someone for their actions when you yourself have not ever been in this situation before, so you don't understand what it feels like. Getting pregnant when you're at a young age and not ready for children is a common and valid reason to not want to have a child. However, simply just not wanting a child and not wanting to put your body through such excruciating pain during this time is also reason enough. Unless you're capable of getting pregnant with a child, I don't think you should have a say on how women choose to use their bodies. Ever since the recent change in certain states of illegalizing abortions again, there have been so many women who have had to drive or fly to different states or even countries just because they're not protected by their own government or president. And I think people who make these laws aren't considerate and don't take into account what it means for certain people, such as women or children who've been raped and didn't ask to have a baby. There was a recent case that I read from a Times article written by Solaris Berga in 2022, where a 10-year-old child who was born in Ohio had to fly to Indiana just so she could receive an abortion as a result of being raped. These are the cases that have been nationally broadcasted to show that these new laws are affecting us women. The child was about 6.5 weeks pregnant and couldn't receive an abortion because there was a fetal heartbeat. This is a terrible rule because the child clearly didn't know she was pregnant until it was too late. She had to go seek a doctor who would be willing to do the procedure, and luckily she found a physician named Dr. Caitlin Bernardard, who recently agreed to do it. This was a classic example of how these new abortion restriction laws were already harming women. There are definitely many other women who are suffering from the same issue, but imagine a 10-year-old girl who has felt how she would have felt if she had to go through childbirth. A 10-year-old girl who isn't even old enough to hit puberty or get her period. This is who they were willing to allow to conceive a child when she's a child herself. Overall, I think that it's important that the people who are part of the Supreme Court have a complete understanding of what it would be like to be raped or pregnant and just be too young, or to not be in the position to have a child, whether that's financially or just not being in the position in life to add a mouth to feed. Unless these people who are making these decisions have been in this predicament before, I don't see how it's fair for you to judge someone who's making this decision. I believe in the My Body, My Choice movement, and everyone else should as well, because no one should have a say in what you choose to do with your own body. Some of the major dates were in 1973, when the Supreme Court established Roe v. Wade. In 1976, women have had to have consent from their husbands to have an abortion. In 1979, women needed parental consent to have an abortion. And then in the 2000s, you no longer needed consent to get an abortion unless you were underaged. And then the small PowerPoint, should abortions be legal? The answer is no. And this was just a map of the United States. In dark blue, you can see like the 23 states where abortion laws have been restricted or are in the process of being restricted, and 58% of women live in these specific states. What are the consequences? So getting an abortion could result in fine or jail time for the person, and that goes for the person who is pregnant and also the doctor who performed the procedure. Some of the key facts: 57% of adults disagree with the Supreme Court's decision in overturning the Roe v. Wade law, and this is the percent of men, 52, and women, 62. 66% of women who are more likely than men to say abortion should be legal in the states or in most countries at all. And I believe that this is just because women know what it's like to have an abortion and to go through pregnancy, and men don't really understand. And then these are just the works cited. That's it.